Hey there folks, Graham here and welcome to the channel. Are you struggling with how to wire and connect everything in your studio, or just looking for ideas on how to fine-tune your current setup? Well, hopefully you've come to the right place. Today I'm going to show you how everything is connected in my studio, and when I say everything, I mean everything. I'll show you all my MIDI connections, USB connections, audio connections, how all my synths are connected to each other, how they're connected to my audio interface, how everything is connected to my computer, as well as everything else including different speakers, monitors, microphones, guitars, and indeed the cameras that I use for making these videos. Basically, everything. The aim of this is to demonstrate what's possible, what sort of equipment you may need, and how to connect it all, which you may find useful in planning your own setup. So let's begin. This is a diagram of my complete studio setup, showing how everything is connected. Now, this might look quite complicated, but we're going to break it down bit by bit. First off, let's run through all the equipment I want to connect, starting with my hardware synths and MIDI controllers. We have a Behringer DeepMind 12, a Behringer FCB 1010 MIDI pedal board, a Behringer Pro 1, a Behringer Neutron, a TC Helicon Voice Live Touch 2, an Arturia Polybrute, Arturia Matrix Brute, a Yamaha MODX8 Plus, a Roland TR8S drum machine, an Arturia Keystep 37, an Arturia Keystep Pro, a Korg Nano Control 2, Roly Seaboard Rise 49, Spark LE drum controller, and an Arturia Keylab 61. Then we have some microphones and a guitar, as well as a record turntable I want to hook up. Then the things for listening on, where I have a set of speakers on my desk, a further set of studio monitors, and also some PA speakers as well as headphones. And finally, various peripherals such as 3 cameras, keyboard and mouse dongles, an external SSD, an HD monitor, and also a VGA monitor. And of course, a computer. So how do I connect all of this together? Well, this is all brought together through 4 pieces of equipment: a MIDI interface, an audio interface, and 2 powered USB hubs. Here I have one with 7 ports and one with 10 ports. Let's start with all the MIDI connections, as these allow all my synths to talk to one another and to the computer. Here I have all the connections to my MIDI interface, and for the keen-eyed who have watched this channel before, you will notice that I'm now using an iConnectivity Mio XL MIDI interface. I was previously using a network of separate merge and through boxes, as you can see in my other videos, but recently decided to invest in one of these for various reasons, which I shall come to in a moment. The green lines are MIDI out from a synth or controller to MIDI in on the MIDI interface. The red lines are MIDI out from the audio interface to MIDI in on the synths and controllers, and the orange lines are USB connections. As you can see, the majority of gear has both its MIDI in and out connected to the interface to allow two-way communication, so that these instruments can both send and receive MIDI data. If you didn't already know, remember that MIDI cables are unidirectional, which means they can only pass the signal one way. The Pro 1 Neutron and Voice Live unit are only connected by a single MIDI cable to their MIDI imports, as they only need to receive MIDI, not send it. The Keylab 61, Seaboard Rise and Korg Nano Control are then connected via USB. These only require one USB cable, as MIDI over USB is bidirectional, allowing two-way communication over a single cable. In addition, I then have my Spark LE drum controller connected directly to the computer via a USB hub. Finally, to connect everything else back to the computer, the Mio XL MIDI interface is then connected to my laptop via an Ethernet cable, which is the blue line. The Mio XL is fairly unique in that it allows you to connect to the computer via USB for MIDI communication, which would be the normal standard thing to do, but also allows you to use something called RTP MIDI instead and transmit MIDI data over an Ethernet cable, which is very useful and again something I'll come to in a moment. It is worth noting that the Mio XL does allow you to connect USB class compliant devices to it directly with one USB cable. And I could do this for many of my devices, potentially cutting down on the amount of cables. However, I prefer to use 5-pin DIN MIDI for the actual synths and anything that is generating or receiving MIDI clock, as I believe it's more stable with less latency and not prone to any jitter that USB may cause. The purpose of connecting everything via MIDI is so that I can get anything to communicate with any other thing that I want it to, whether that be a MIDI controller talking to a hardware synth talking to another hardware synth, or any of my devices talking with my computer. For example, my MIDI controllers like my KeyStep 37, KeyStep Pro or Keylab 61 can play any one of my hardware synths or indeed any one of the VSTs on my computer. Likewise, my MODX8 Plus here is programmed to communicate with any one of my hardware synths or any one of my VST synths at the touch of a button. If you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I have everything set up this way to allow me a huge amount of flexibility in how I use my gear in the studio, allowing me to work in either a doorless environment where everything works and communicates with one another without a computer, or when I want to record, everything is already hooked up to the computer and pre-configured in templates in my DAW, which is Cubase, so I can just fire up that DAW and I'm ready to go. Effectively, this is a hybrid setup offering the best of both worlds. If you want more info on this approach, then please check out the MIDI playlist on my channel, where I dig into this in a lot more detail through a whole series of videos. This brings me to why I replaced my old MIDI through and merge boxes with the Mio XL, which you can see sitting down here underneath my matrix brute. Firstly, my setup had expanded in such a way that I was overloading the USB ports on my laptop, which was leading to bandwidth issues. This was mainly manifesting itself in causing problems with my cameras, with stuttering video capture, which isn't very good when you're trying to make videos. As mentioned a moment ago, the Mio XL is able to connect to your computer over an Ethernet cable using RTP MIDI. This offloads all MIDI traffic from the USB ports and therefore solves any USB bandwidth issues that you might be experiencing. Second, my existing network of through and merge boxes was being stretched to the limit and there was no room for further expansion of any new gear in the future if I wanted to. And thirdly, the Mio XL just makes life easier, as you can easily change MIDI routings and apply filtering quickly and simply without ever having to move any cables about. You can also have various different presets with different routings pre-configured that can be applied at the touch of a button. You just plug everything into the Mio XL and then map it all using the supplied Oracle software that comes with it. I will be doing a video in the near future on the Mio XL to cover this in a lot more detail, so look out for that one. Just to note, there are many other options for MIDI interfaces. The Mio XL is just the one I went for as it covers all my requirements, but there are also options such as the Motu MIDI Express XT, Conductive Labs MRCC, or the ESI M8UEX. So that's all the MIDI connections, which, as I say, allows everything to talk to one another and for everything to talk to the computer. But we must remember that MIDI is just information. It doesn't contain any audio. In order to listen to your gear or record the sound from it all, you'll need an audio interface. First, let's look at all the audio inputs. On the screen at the bottom is my audio interface. This comprises an Audient Evo 16 interface with 8 audio inputs and an SP8 ADAT expander with a further 8 inputs, giving 16 in total. Connected to this is the audio from all my hardware synths and other audio gear, and the purple lines show all these audio connections. From my Behringer DeepMind, I have 2 audio cables, left and right, running to 2 inputs on the audio interface. For simplification, I've just shown this as one purple line. I then have a single cable running from each of the Pro 1, Neutron and Voice Live to the audio interface. These only require one audio cable as they are mono units, not stereo. The Polybrute, Matrix Brute, MODX8 Plus and TR8S each then have 2 cables connected to the audio interface, same as we did with the Behringer DeepMind. There is then a microphone connected to the Voice Live unit, which, as we know, is then connected to the audio interface, and a second microphone and electric guitar connected directly to the inputs on the audio interface. And last of all, here I have a record turntable connected to the audio inputs on my Yamaha MODX8 Plus, which allows me to feed that audio into the audio interface via the MODX. I could have connected this direct to the audio interface, but I'm currently using all the inputs, so this is a perfect workaround. If I wanted in the future, I could expand my setup with a further SP8 ADAT expander to give me another 8 audio inputs. Next, we have the audio outputs, i.e. where we want the audio to go so that we can listen to it. Here you can see with the pink lines that my audio interface has multiple outputs, and these are connected to a set of speakers on my desk, a pair of studio monitors, a pair of PA speakers, and I also have my headphones attached to the interface. This not only gives me different ways to listen to stuff dependent on what I'm doing, but also allows me to test my mixes on various speaker systems. For example, I use the desktop speakers mainly for listening to the computer audio, watching videos, listening to general music, etc. I use the studio monitors for mixing and monitoring when I'm making tracks, and I use the PA speakers when I'm rehearsing live in the studio, and sometimes I just do all of these things on the headphones. So that's all the audio connections, and we've previously looked at all the MIDI connections, so now let's look at the USB connections. First of all, we have the audio interface that we were just talking about connected to the laptop via USB. This allows you to record all the audio into your computer and also for any recorded audio data to be played back to speakers or headphones. Then I have a camera connected directly to the computer via USB and various other peripherals, including a further 2 webcams, a VGA monitor, an external SSD and wireless keyboard and mouse dongles connected to powered USB hubs, which then connect to the computer, followed by an HD monitor connected directly via an HDMI cable. So is that everything? Well, not quite. There are a few other USB connections. You see, the only problem with MIDI interfaces is that they only send and receive actual MIDI data. And many synths and MIDI controllers out there have bespoke software editors that can be used to program them. For example, the MIDI Control Center from Arturia, the Roly dashboard for my Seaboard Rise, or the Roland TR8S editor. And the issue with these software editors is that they don't communicate using standard MIDI protocols and require a direct connection to the computer in order for them to work. Now, considering you won't be using these editors all the time, you could just plug in a USB cable when you want to the respective piece of equipment and then run it to the computer. Do what you want with the editor and then unplug it. But I hate plugging and unplugging things and moving cables around all the time, and I'm always fiddling around with my routings and maybe trying to fine-tune my setup even further. So for my gear that does use software editors, not only are they connected to the Mio XL MIDI interface by 5-pin DIN MIDI cables, they are also connected to the computer permanently via the powered USB hubs. The hubs have switches for each USB input, so when not being used, I just turn off these USB ports on the hubs. But if I want to use an editor for one of them, I just flick the switch on that USB port and I'm ready to go. As you can see here with the yellow dotted lines, I have my KeyStep Pro, KeyStep 37, Seaboard Rise and Neutron connected to one hub, and then my Keylab 61, DeepMind 12, TR8S, MOD X8, Matrix Brute and Polybrute going to the other USB hub. And that is everything. That is how everything is connected in my studio. Bringing us back to where we started with this entire overview of the studio and all of those connections all shown together. So this now is a fully connected studio, which, as I mentioned earlier, allows me huge flexibility in how I use my gear, how I trigger each synth, how I control them, how I record them, how I listen to them, whether I tie myself to the computer or go doorless and just jam. Hopefully now though, having been through it step by step, this final diagram no longer looks so daunting. Well, that's just about it for now, and I hope that this has given you some ideas on how you too can connect everything in your studio. For more details, please check out the playlists on my channel, especially the MIDI playlist, which really focuses in on some of the individual subjects that I've covered in this video. If you have any questions on this or any of my other content, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below, or if you've got questions, you can email me on splootyvision@gmail.com. Indeed, any or all feedback is gratefully received. And if you have enjoyed this video, then please don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that bell, as it really, really is appreciated. But for now, I've been Graham. Take care and catch you later.